Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Hey, it's your old pal, Uncle Tom McAuliffe, man about town and award-winning author. Thanks for joining us and stopping in at Uncle Tom's Cabin, a place where we talk about books, music, world affairs, and anything else you want to. So I appreciate you stopping by. Let's see what's going on. Getting ready to release my new book, Atlantis. They're still here. Number 3 in the Leviathan Protocol series. We have one more in that book series, a 4-book series, underwater adventures, archaeological finds. I think you'll find it very, very interesting. I did a lot of research on that. We're going to be talking a little bit about that. One of the things I'm going to be doing is spending 2 nights on the old Sea Lab. A lot of people don't remember this, but we had back in the 70s a thing called Sea Lab, which was kind of like the space station, only underwater. I'm a big believer in underwater technologies, and that really our search should be in inner space, not outer space. We know more about the surface of the moon and Mars than we do about the ocean floor on our own planet. And that needs to change. You're looking for all those rare earth minerals you want for your cell phone and electronic devices. There's only one place on the earth that's left, and that's just the bottom of the ocean. Now, the Chinese and others are fooling around with the idea of space mining, and I wrote a book called Space Cowboy about that. But that is many years in the future, 50 years from now, where they'll be able to land on an asteroid or a comet and extract minerals from it and bring those minerals back here for processing. That technology and those things are going to be far off in advance, but we'll continue to think. But meanwhile, the Chinese are all over this. They have huge undersea mining operations. Big things the size of a semi-trailer truck, where they're dragging across the ocean there and extrapolate everything. Unfortunately, it's a little bit like dragnet fishing, where when they're doing halibut, they just basically take a net and drag it across the floor of the ocean. Unfortunately, it destroys everything. Anything that's on there, coral, other fish that they don't want, which usually they just kill and throw back overboard. But those are some things. And so check that out. It's available for pre-sale. Atlantis, they're still here. And that's coming on Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and your favorite local bookstore. Available as paperback, ebook, and audiobook. Exciting. So we're going to be talking with author Joe DiStefano. He's come out with a new book that I helped him with called Circle of Wellness. He is a dynamo, ladies and gentlemen. 78 years old and still going strong like he's 50. A former competitive weightlifter and powerlifter, has won some medals and awards and stuff over the years, has been a government employee for 30 years, working for the United States Air Force, civil engineering type stuff. But I met him at a book festival called Books by the Bay, which happens every spring in Pensacola, Florida. And it's so obvious that he's such a dynamo. So he's going to be on the show. And I thought that what we do maybe to start is, let me see if I can get that right there, is to read a little bit from this new book that he's got called Circle of Wellness. It has a wonderful foreword by a nurse practitioner, Diane Bockelman. She's an RN and nurse practitioner in Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. And she, her practice before she retired, and she's just retired, dealt with geriatrics, with seniors. And so that's a wonderful forward there. But let me just go through here and pick at random. Chapter number 2, nutrition. Nutrition, fueling your body for optimal performance. The power of food is more than just fuel for the body. The phrase, quote, "you are what you eat," unquote, may sound cliche, but it carries a profound truth. The food you consume is far more than just calories. It is the raw material your body uses to build, repair, and sustain itself. It influences everything from your energy level to your immune system, to your moods, and even, ultimately, your longevity. Imagine your body as a finely tuned machine. The quality of the fuel you put into it determines how efficiently it will perform. Fill it with nutrient-dense whole foods, and you'll enjoy sustained energy, sharper focus, and a stronger immune defense. Fuel it with heavily processed, nutrition-poor junk food, and you'll experience sluggishness, brain fog, and a weakened resistance to illness. Food is energy and powers your day. It provides the body with glucose, its primary energy source. And when you eat, your body breaks down carbohydrates into glucose, which absorbed into the bloodstream is used for energy. Some different bullet points. And the one thing about the book that's very interesting to me is he really spoon feeds it with different bullet points as you go. Complex carbs like whole grains and vegetables provide a slow, steady release of energy. Healthy fats and proteins provide long-lasting energy, keep you fuller and more energized for longer periods of time. And then we talk about food as medicine. Heart disease, omega-3 fatty acids found in fish, flaxseed, and walnuts provide lower inflammation and reduced heart disease risk. And he goes on and on about different micronutrients, the big three: proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Talks about macronutrients versus micronutrients, which is kind of interesting. And the book has wonderful, wonderful graphics too, like that and stuff like that. So keep you interested, yeah? But let's go on. The other thing that was interesting to me about this book is, for the first time, and I've read a lot of self-help, try to get fit, try to get healthy type books looking for the answer, right? But I think this is one of the first books that I've ever found that talked about the power of mental attitude and how critical that is for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. For example, in chapter 5, he talks about a positive mental attitude, the power of mindset. There's definitely a mind-body connection, and one's mental health directly influences physical well-being. When it comes to wellness, your mind is just as important as your body. In fact, the two are inseparably linked. Your thoughts, emotions, and mindset do influence your physical health, immune response, and overall vitality. Consider this: when you're stressed or anxious, your body reacts by releasing cortisol and adrenaline, triggering the flight or fight response. Over time, chronic stress can lead to inflammation, weakened immunity, and even chronic disease. Conversely, when you experience joy, love, gratitude, your body releases endorphins and oxytocin, promoting relaxation, reducing pain, and boosting your immune function. At most chapters have a cool little check mark, and it says key insights. So it's kind of like an executive summary. It provides you with just the bullet point that you really need to get in your head. Here's, for this one, for positive mental attitude, key insight: your mental state shapes your physical health. Positive thinking can reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and improve your resilience, while chronic negativity can erode health over time. The science of positivity, optimism's role in health and longevity. Very, very interesting. It also has different tips or daily affirmations throughout the book. And it's only like, I don't know, I think it's $15 or so. And the thing about it is there's no fluff. It's all straightforward and boom, gets right to it. I like that. It's about 150 pages or something like that. The other one I really liked, and lastly, because we have to move on, is chapter 7, Nutrition in Practice and Making Smart Choices. Won't read all that, but I just want to point out that there's also cool recipes in here. Easy peasy recipes. Circle of Wellness, Your Guide to Better Health and Wellness by Joe Stefano and yours truly, Tom McAuliffe. Available now in paperback, ebook, and audiobook on Apple Audiobooks. Come on, check it out. Well, I'm super excited to have my next guest on the show. He's not a stranger to me, maybe he is to you, but for the first time in my career, I actually did a partnership with a great guy named Joe Stefano. He's a 77-year-old, now 78, I think, veteran, a lifelong health enthusiast, and a former competitive weightlifter and powerlifter. He defies age, ladies and gentlemen. He looks like he's 50. And over 6 decades, he's been dedicated to fitness, nutrition, and personal wellness. Joe is an inspiring blend of old school discipline and modern health insights to his work, and he's the co-author of Circle of Wellness. He shares his hard-earned wisdom from a life spent pursuing physical and mental strength. He's a firm believer that age is just a number. Joe's story and philosophy are a powerful reminder that it's never too late to take control of your health, habits, and your life. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, Joe DiStefano. How are you, sir?
How you doing, sir? Good to see you, Tom.
It's good to see you.
Good introduction.
So now, first, before we even get started, let me just ask you, so you took the book over to Europe and you were showing the book around Europe. You just did a big trip in Europe. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the trip to Europe was basically to London and to Paris. We spent about 3 days and 4 days, I should say, in London and 4 days in Paris. And I mostly were on a tour guide. We had very little time to do off-site stuff. We had to follow the tour group, but I was able to sneak away a couple of those moments to see some of the bookstores they had in the areas. And I was a little bit disappointed when I went to the bookstores. There was nothing on it. It was too soon. It wasn't in their system yet. This book, Circle of Wellness, is what I got the impression, not the impression, but that's what I was told by all the vendors that were selling the books at the store. But I went to see a few of them. I went to see Harris's. I went to see Shakespeare, buy the Shakespeare book in Paris. I went to see them.
Ooh,
and you can order the book now, but you have to order it specially from them. But they did not have it in their system to put it on their shelves yet. So I was, like I said, a little disappointed in that respect. I should have, just like Tom was telling me, just stuck it on the bookshelf and left it there. I didn't think about doing it at that time. I should have done so, and I would have done so. I had some extra books with me, and I would have left a couple there and just walked away.
It takes about 3 or 4 months for the book to make it into the system and such. But tell us a little bit about the Shakespeare bookstore in Paris. What was that like?
It was small. It wasn't that big. There was one there in Paris, specifically the one in Paris you're talking about, Shakespeare bookstore. A lot of people were there, but it wasn't a real big bookstore. It was mostly old books. They have certain books they keep on the shelves. They don't really do all the books, but it's there available. And it was a smaller type of bookstore. It wasn't a real big one. The big one was in London. I didn't get a chance to go inside. I talked to the people. I couldn't, the time-wise, I just would love to have, but it would have been the same results, I am sure. But they have a big bookstore in London, and it was for like a couple of stories. The building itself was tremendous bookstore there, but that was in London.
Is that called Gardner's?
Yeah, it's Gardner. Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, the big boy in London it was.
I've heard of him.
I didn't remember the name, but that was what it was. But about 4 or 5 bookstores. I looked inside, and they didn't. have it on the shelves, like I mentioned. They have a sections there saying, self-improvement section. And that's where I probably should have put the book there with self-improvement section. All the other books that were there, I said, my book would fit perfectly right there. I said, on that shelf right there. I said, that's where my book should be, if it's going to be there. But it was not there
Well,
then. But I should have,
well,
like you took your advice. I didn't at the time realize it, Tom. I apologize for not doing
oh,
that. I
no
should have.
biggie, no biggie. Let's talk a little bit about it. So, Circle of Wellness, your guide to better health and wellness. Um, Tell me what your inspiration was in coming up with this idea and this book.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you, Tom, to everybody for putting this together for us. Because without your insight, without your developing the entire circle of wellness, all the precepts, and put it in a book format, this never would have saw the light of day. I know
I
that's not a
appreciate that.
good grammar, but that's too bad. It's just the way it is. But I'm saying to what inspired me to begin with, to answer your question specifically, about 15, maybe now 16, time goes by, about 16 years ago, I guess, I put this together and I presented it to a class. I was teaching at the time at the University of West Florida. I was working 3 jobs simultaneously, but that was one of my jobs, part-time at night, full-time with the county, one-time consultant and civil engineer, but that's another story. But anyway, I was there at night and they asked me about, the kids knew I worked out and they wanted to know about my lifting. I said, look, those who want to stay at the end of class
About your
can do so.
lifting, huh? Your weightlifting.
Weightlifting, powerlifting at that time was powerlifting in competitions. And so and they knew I lifted, but they wanted to know how much I can pick up. I said, look, it's not going to do us any good. Look, the ones who want to stay after class can stay. Those who want to leave can leave because we're going to talk about some different things other than class. So not one person left. All of them stayed after class. And
Was the class about health stuff? Was the class about health?
The class was engineering class. I was teaching construction technology programs at the University of West Florida. I had 4 preps, but that's a separate issue by itself. I did that 19 plus years. I did this 19 plus years at night, spring, summer, fall, about 56 classes I've taught. So I'm not afraid to get in front of a group of people if I have something to say. I was first very shy. I still am somewhat introverted, but I'm saying, but I'm not afraid to get up in front of somebody. And if I have something positive to say, something I can impart to them, I'm willing and able to do so, and I can refute anybody. I'm not refute, rather, I can stand up to anybody and define what I'm about in that respect. I can talk about that freely and fully. But anyway, getting back to the point, what I did was I said, look, they stayed. I didn't talk about my lifting per se. I just mentioned just a couple of contents that look, this is what's important. This is what you want to take with you when you leave this class. What I'm going to show you now, you're never going to hear from anybody else, I said to them, first and foremost. I have my blackboard in front of me, I have my chalk, white chalk, red chalk, green chalk, and blue chalk, and of the blackboard, old school at that time. I drew my circle of wellness on the blackboard, circle, 360-degree circle on the blackboard. I labeled it the circle of wellness. I divided that circle in 2, one half of which was 180 degrees. I put down, just do it. That's the most important part of this circle of wellness is getting out there and doing things physically, because without that, Tom, the rest is kind of haphazard. The first most important thing is physically to get out there and do things for yourself, for others. Yeah, that's the circle right there. And that's the most important thing of the circle of wellness. If you hear that message, I said, you can leave now because you got the gist of what I'm saying to you. Activity level at home, cutting grass, hedges, swimming, working out in the gym, physically, riding a bicycle, wrestling, shop, putting all these things, rowing, all these different things physically you can do that you want to do, that you want to get out, but you have to get up and move. Any workout will work. Any workout will work as long as you do. Because if you work, the body puts it a little under stress, then the body responds. It doesn't want to die, it wants to live. It's going to respond back to that. And I go back to my other thing about the diet, and I go back to the thing about rest. And the most important thing, the diet, you have to fuel the body to be able to sustain your work. You have to be able to sustain that body's got the fuel it needs, and it'll take whatever you give it, by the way. The body will take whatever you want to ingest, it'll ingest for you. But you do yourself the most good if you take the quality food, the good food, the one that's less processed by man. That's what you want to avoid. You want the fruits, the vegetables, the fish, all the things you get naturally, mostly, and that's what you want to ingest. The body will utilize that. And the water, again, as I tell everybody, is a drink of choice. Water is the drink of choice. Never forget that. Over everything and anything. The body needs that. And that's partly. And the rest of it goes into more the lean meats and fish, salmon, etc., and so forth. But the sleep is very important to restore the body so that you can do things again the next day, feel up to par. You want to get between 7 and 8 hours or so of sleep a night, roughly and consistently. Maybe go to bed the same time to sustain that. You go to sleep right away, and you have your rest sleep, your slow wave sleep, SWS, and the first hour or so, it prevents the dementia later on in life. You take a little bit of a pill, you take a magnesium, a calcium, and a vitamin C with a little cup of milk right before, about an hour before bedtime, and that'll just restore the body while you're sleeping. And you have the REM sleep, the deep sleep is what you want as well. That's important. You may have to get up like I have to get up in the middle of the night, take a leak because I might ate, but for prostate and so forth. But that's expected. You go back to bed and I sleep right away.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, talking with Joe is a little bit like an informational fire hose. He's got information and he's passionate about it and he wants to share it with you. Unfortunately, we only have so many minutes in the show.
I apologize.
No problem, brother. Let me ask you. So we've got a foreword by a nurse practitioner, which is kind of exciting. But I thought maybe we could just go through the book a little bit, and I'll tell you some of the chapters, and you could make a couple comments on them, if that'd be all right. So we have a chapter about rest and recuperation. We talk about defining wellness, the 4 pillars of a healthy life. Tell me what the 4 pillars are.
4 pillars basically are the mindset is the most important out of the 4 pillars, the attitude between doing things right. Of course, you want to get your rest, you want to get your nutrition, you want to stay activity, and that's part of it. And I also call a little thing there called the whirlwind of life. I know I mentioned it at the end of my 10 degrees of that circle. It happens in life. You have to expect that when you go through life. You have emergencies come up that's going to affect the rest of that circle of 350-degree circle. Is going to affect it negatively. But how well you do with that 10 degrees, you come back and you go ahead and go back again. Don't let that dissuade you from getting back to the normal routine again, because it happens in life. The caregivers, I know so many caregivers that took care of the people and they neglected themselves. Maybe at the end they had to have caregivers to take care of them, and it was so sad. But the point, what I'm trying to say to you, all things in moderation. You can have your cake, you can have your chocolate, you can have your beer once in a while. I'm not saying you can't, of course you can, but don't make that a habit is what I'm trying to say. And that's the basic principle here. The 4 principles, like you mentioned, Tom, the most important thing basically there is everything in moderation. It can be done. And if you have a mindset to continue that attitude, it's never, one day you miss a workout, so what? Okay, if it happens, it happens. You have no choice. You don't make it up. You just go with the flow. Feel better the next day, give yourself enough rest, you come back to it, and you don't make it difficult. You make it very simple. A simplistic, holistic approach to wellness is what this book is all about. A simplistic, holistic approach to wellness for a quality of life that you can achieve if you wish to achieve. Its attitude drives this whole thing for you as the individual. You're an individual, and never compare yourself to anybody else.
Now, I found it interesting that in chapter 4, and I've read quite a few health books and physical fitness books trying to teach myself how to do this. But I found it very interesting that you included in chapter 4 a chapter on rest and recovery, and that it was the overlooked key. Tell me a little bit about that.
Rest and recovery is so critical. I can relate to that because I dealt with this many times as a competitive weightlifter and powerlifter. You've got to rest that body before the competition, and by doing so, what you did in the gym is one thing. That's what you can expect to do somewhat in the competition. However, one's adrenaline, if you give it proper rest now, it knows the moves, it knows how to do the moves. The competition, what drives you, the adrenaline flows out in the competition. You'll be able to do the sustain if you rest prior to that meet. And by doing so, you can exceed your very best maximums at the competition by resting. That's one thing I learned, not the hard way. I learned that the simplistic way of doing things in life, that was the most important thing I learned as far as my lifting. The resting is important. And if you don't feel well one day in a training, you don't torture yourself. You go back, you just stop, leave the gym, you go back again. When you rest again, you come back and you're able to do it. Sometimes the body has like biorhythms. You've got mental, physical, emotional biorhythms. The body goes through the cycles itself. It has its own cycle built into the body itself. I didn't talk about that here, but we have cycles. Sometimes you're feeling up. My God, it was fantastic. And that day you work out, you set personal best. You go to the gym, you hit heavy weights. You don't feel that right, but you still want to work out. You stay lighter, and don't force yourself to go heavy. Stay light. Just do the movements. We're at this stage right now, Tom, when we're at the age now. The competitiveness with others is over. The competitiveness is within ourselves. That's the key. You do what you can for yourself, relatively wise. Everything is relative. Age is a relative number. Yes, like you mentioned, 78. Age is a relative number, but still, those of us who age eventually succumb to the ravages of age. You can't avoid that. That's important.
You don't look a day over 40, my friend.
Well, I'm just saying to you, that's the thing we have to keep in mind is it's a relative number. But the point I'm getting down to the bottom here, and the most important thing I mentioned in my prologue at the end of that sentence is comes with the individual. They've got to want to do it. They got to want to. You got to want to. If you don't have that attitude, you're not going to do it. If you have the attitude, if you want to succeed, you'll do it. That's important. That's the most important thought.
Kind of related to that, you also included a chapter on stress. And
Yes.
how does stress really affect our health? Does it?
And we have stress. Every time, let me say, stress is okay. Stress is okay. If you can deal with the stress, by taking deep breaths, the movements that we're saying, sit back, count the number, take a deep breath, 4 deep breaths, and so forth. Exactly. You want to be able to just, and come back to square one and take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. I don't anybody that believes in God or so. He basically, I'm not going to make it religious, but he says to us, you just do your best each day, because in the end, he says, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. He keeps it simple. He keeps it simple. I got that from Father McMahon in the mail one time. I wrote that in my book. I have a lot of books here that I put my notes in behind these training logs I got here. I got 30 of these training logs over here. It took me about 1970. It takes about a year and a half to 2 years to fill in one of these books. I'm on 24 right now, number 24. But the point is, that's a lot. The point I'm saying to you is, you keep it simple, you'll do it. You make it tough, you won't do it. And especially as we get older, we want to keep it simple, but you got to do it. Keep it simple that you're going to want to do it. If you're going to want to do it, then you're going to succeed.
Yeah, but Uncle Joe, can't you just give me a pill and make it all better?
No, that doesn't work. The pill is the attitude. You take that, if that pill has attitude in the pill, then it's going to be fine, because that attitude will give that into the body, and it'll blossom like the what do you call it again? Jack and the Beanstalk with the beans, the magic beans. Those are magic beans. And I had a story about that on the scuba dive, but that's another story. I dropped the beans on the ground, not thinking they even reached the floor, but not only did they reach the floor, they took root with a vengeance. But you by not risking, you risk everything in life. And that's what I wrote a story on the scuba diver. I got that in England right now. Looking at it, I want to publish that too, but that's another story. But I put that in there because I volunteered at the time during the Vietnam conflict. This was back when, in 1969, in 68, the late enlistment program to finish my last term at school. Then I went to, at Lackland, Shepherd. Then I went to Hickam to become a diver, an Air Force scuba diver at that time, in the recovery of satellites. I was a skin diver for eels at that time on the island where I lived on City Island. I wrote a lot of stories on City Island, and one of which was called Skin Diving for Eels off City Island. And I went ahead and I developed I love the water. I wasn't a great swimmer. I was in very good shape, but I was a good hunter. I had my eel spear. I hold my breath. I go down in the water. I spear an eel, put it in my tube, in a basket inside the tube. That's how I got me. And I learned and I was a good hunter. When I got to Pearl Harbor, the water was so clear. It was a whole story. I don't want to get into that. But the point was, Poseidon wasn't quite finished with me yet, as I said in my story. And the skin diving for eels, he's showing more of his vast domain in the Pacific Ocean. Anyway.
Well, we're almost out of time. And I end most of my reviews and interviews with this following question.
Yes, sir.
If there was one thing that you would want people to know about the book Circle of Wellness, what would it be?
The one thing I would let them know is, for a quality of life, these precepts that are presented in the Circle of Wellness should be adhered to. And basically, in 6 words, it's a holistic, simplistic approach to wellness. That's the crux of it right there, those 6 words. If you want a quality of life, that's what you want to use in your going forward in life. Not the quantity. The quantity probably will be increased as well because of it, but that's not a guarantee. The quality, however, will be enhanced, regardless of what stage of life you're in, sick, well, otherwise, man, woman, child. It's inclusive for everybody. That's the key. It's inclusive. It's an inclusive book, the most DEI book you ever wanted to read in your entire life, because everybody is focused on that book. Everybody can be involved in that book.
Well, it's available on Amazon, Kindle, and soon Apple audiobooks. So it's available as an ebook, as a regular paperback book, and as soon as an audiobook. And we want to thank Joe for coming on, and hopefully he'll come back by and tell us a little bit more about living a healthy life with Circle of Wellness. Joe, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Tom, for having me. I appreciate that. And all your audience, thank you so very much for attending the podcast. Thank you. God bless you all. Take care now. Bye
Take
bye.
care.
Bye bye. Okay.
Well, as you can see, Joe he's a wealth of information and always a lot of fun. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Next week, we're going to have, and don't forget to make it a point to come on by every Saturday for our live broadcasts around noon, Central Standard Time. Usually these videos are going to drop on Sunday morning because it takes the system a while to process them. And we're just starting out. We only have a few people that have come and subscribed. I'm supposed to remind you, please subscribe and or like our videos. It really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. Until I get 50 subscribers, I guess I'm persona non grata. So anything you could do to help us out, we surely would appreciate it. Next week, if I'm not mistaken, and I've judged my calendar properly, we're going to have Flava from Get Authentic Book Reviews. Don't forget, we talk about books, both mine and other people's. We talk about independent publishing. We talk about music. I've been listening to the brand new Santana album, Sentient. Absolutely love it. And also just got in the mail yesterday the new Maroon 5. I like those guys. So if you've got a CD, and I want to mention this. There's a guy named Greg Gunn, Gunn, who has created a CD called Music for Writers. And I've ordered that, and it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe I put it on and I spit out a bestseller or two. We can only hope. Let's see if there's anything I forgot. So we're going to have Flava coming on. We're talking about all kinds of different stuff. And if you've got a subject you want us to cover and talk about, please let me know. And join us again next week here at Uncle Tom's Cabin. Books, music, and more. And of course, you make it a great day.